All right, folks, welcome to 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏. I am joined with George Papadopoulos, and let me tell you, he is a big piece, a big component to this RussiaGate, I guess we can call it coup now, that Obama orchestrated. Now, I've been talking to you for a very long time, George, and you're one of the main components to this puzzle, to this RussiaGate puzzle. Since we're here on YouTube, we're going to talk about what we can here, and then we'll go back to 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏 and talk about it further. I know my audience had a lot of questions for you that I'll ask you, but is it any surprise to you that it's breaking right now?
Yeah, David, look, thanks a lot for having me, and what a momentous day. You and I have been talking about this for now years, right? I think we're going on almost 10 years of when the silent coup initiated. Many people, believed the things that I was telling you, the things that you've been talking about, because our stories always stayed the same. And when you're not lying, your story stays the same, and you don't have to remember a million different things. When people lie, you see them, shift. They say one thing, then they start saying another thing. I've been saying since day one that it was Obama running the show, and it wasn't imbeciles like Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. I would use the metaphor of a forest. Unfortunately, allies in the conservative world and enemies in the liberal world would basically focus on the trees and forget the forest. The trees were Strzok and Page. The forest was Obama and the globalist agenda that was running the show behind the scenes. I would argue, and this is something that I have said in the past, and I'm going to stick to it today. This wasn't simply a domestic coup, this involved global surveillance. You had countries all around the world, from Australia to members of the European Union and some in the Middle East, that worked hand in glove with Obama to initiate this spying operation in 2015. It wasn't simply because they hated Donald Trump. I think that they targeted other political campaigns in 2015, including Carson's, Ted Cruz's, potentially Marco Rubio's. Anybody who posed a threat to Obama's third term, meaning that could potentially defeat Hillary Clinton, was targeted for extermination one way or another, whether it was by silent surveillance or whether it was overt, zealous prosecution. They were stuck in the crosshairs. And I, being part of two presidential campaigns in 2016, felt the wrath of that, but I fought back.
You did, and you prevailed, and you have a lot of character and backbone for doing that, sir. They had a plot to frame you in connection with this RussiaGate hoax. Can you just explain this to my audience, those that don't know, maybe be new to this, which I doubt there are, but just in case, explain what happened, how they set you up, and what happened, and how it transpired?
Yeah, so this is why I always start my, spiel about the story by focusing on what was happening abroad, because no one really understands that aspect. Um, I was living and working in London for a lot of months between 2015, even during the first couple of months I was on Trump's campaign. I had a business out there. I was in energy. My office was in London. I was planning on actually making my life in the UK. Joining Trump's campaign brought me back to the United States. Now, while I was living in the UK, this is where the whole Five Eyes intelligence surveillance started to occur. For just so your audience understands what Five Eyes intelligence is, they're a group of five countries: the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, that all have a pact that they are allowed to spy on each other's citizens in order to circumvent their domestic laws. For example, if you're an American who's targeted and you're living in London, the CIA legally can't spy on you, and the FBI legally can't spy on you. So what do? They say, hey, British intelligence, MI5, MI6, go find this guy, see what he's up to, go dirty him up, go send some honeypots, go send some fake bribes, go tap his phone, tap his email, see what he's talking to the Trump campaign about from London. That is how it all started. So the moment I get involved with Trump's campaign, I have these operatives from countries like Italy, the UK, Australia, literally converging upon me within a month of joining this campaign. So this is why I always say, David, that this thing didn't start in 2016. This goes way further back, and I just don't say it, but Special Counsel John Durham said it. And I'm going to land on this. The reason the whole special counsel, John Durham, was so important is for two reasons. One, he said that the investigation goes way back further than 2016, and that there was information that was classified that he couldn't use to deliver to grand jury to prosecute other individuals. What happened today with Gabbard and yesterday in the last week is with this information finally being declassified, this information can go to grand juries now. Grand juries can see this stuff and indict the perpetrators, not only in DC courts, but all around America. And that's
Don't
what made this so important.
don't you believe this has to go military since it's dealing with treason on our country?
Well, this is
I mean,
why
Trump has put it up. I mean, he's put up a post saying military tribunals.
look, treason is a crime punishable by. You know what it's punishable by.
Right, right.
It's punishable. It's a very severe crime. And in order for it to be a treasonous act, there have to be two issues going on. One, either you are abided or working for a foreign government to subvert your own government, or you attempt to initiate a coup, whether it's a violent coup or a silent coup domestically. What we're talking about here today, David, is a combination of both. That is why President Trump and DNI Gabbard, not George Papadopoulos, not David Rodriguez, are calling this a treasonous act and a criminal act and a act that makes both Obama and other officials guilty. That is what makes this so profound and so earth-shattering. I mean, just think about it. And I want your audience to understand what we're even talking about, just to grasp the moment. For the first time in modern American history, we have a former FBI director, a former CIA director, and a former president all under criminal investigation simultaneously with criminal conspiracy charges levied against them and sent to the Department of Justice. When Trump was raided, indicted, and convicted in a kangaroo court system, there was no evidence against him. Any single person who was out there who had a significant JD or was a powerhouse attorney that wasn't part of the Democrats' power structure called every single charge against Trump BS, should have never happened, and that's exactly why he overcame the Fannie Willis garbage, the New York court stuff. He overcame this stuff because those weren't serious charges. He was the most investigated president in history, and he got off on that kind of stuff. Now let's see what Obama's able to do. Let's see if he pulls a rabbit out of the hat.
I don't think he's going to. I really don't. And I have my own conspiracies behind it, my theories behind this. They wanted to create this false narrative with the Russia hoax, obviously setting you up. Can you just give some of the details on how they tried to set you up? It was more of a bribe, correct? They were trying to bribe you.
Yeah, so here's what they did, and it was very interesting. So if you read the initial stories, they would make it seem like George Papadopoulos was meeting with Putin, meeting with Putin's niece, going to Russia with some sort of back channel. I've never been to Russia to this day in my life. I've never met a Russian official in this day in my entire life, and I've never met Putin, obviously. So just so you understand how contorted and how incredible the disinformation and the operation went into trying to create a situation in which I was some sort of Russian middleman, they had to use the most sophisticated tradecraft agencies and operatives that they possibly had in order to make it happen. They used honeypots, they used attempted bribes, they used surveillance of me while I was in London, while I went to Israel, while I was in Athens, Greece. They used operatives from countries like Italy, the UK, Australia, Israel. That is why, and I gave an interview recently to the Washington Times where I said this. I said, when you saw Trump cozying up a lot to people like Meloni, the prime minister in Italy, when he made this trade agreement with the UK, even though the UK tried to screw him in Ukraine with the mineral deal, when he has this back and forth with Netanyahu, where he's consistently bringing him, yeah, some of it obviously has to do with geoeconomics, geopolitics. But I think the main reason he was cozying up, especially with Maloney, is because he was getting information about what these people were doing, the people like myself, to General Flynn, to Manafort when he was in Ukraine, to General Flynn. They were bringing all of us abroad. They brought General Flynn in the UK where they were targeting him with that guy 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝗃, and they were using that innocent research associate at Cambridge, 𝗬𝗵𝗃 𝗀𝘂𝗍𝗂, I believe her name was, saying that she was a Russian honeypot. That was all fake, but they had to lure him to the UK. It was all the same type of stuff because they couldn't get away with it domestically in the United States.
So they
So
had to do
that
it
is,
abroad.
yeah. So if there's one thing people, I really want them to grasp of what I'm trying to say here is this was never a domestic US driven operation or surveillance. It was initiated abroad with the CIA and with our so-called allies that was then passed off to the FBI to obtain fake warrants and to spy on Trump's campaign, to wiretap Trump Tower the way that President Trump said that they did. That is the entire situation of how it started. And if you look at DNI, you have X in front of you. If you look what DNI Gabbard posted just yesterday, she made this random, I don't think it was random, this post that she went to London. Oh, I just popped over to London for this meeting I had with some officials. I think she went there because she had to tell her British counterparts and the US Embassy in London what was coming down, what is about to be declassified, and that the Brits had to be ready for it. There's no other explanation in my mind why, in the middle of exposing the biggest scandal in history, that she would pop over to London for a day and come back.
Yeah, here it is right here. Tulsi Gabbard wants to investigate London. So I would imagine through all this, I mean, you're going to be a key witness, George. I would imagine you play a very big role in all of this. What tipped you off that you were being set up, man? How'd you know you were being set up?
I mean, so imagine, hindsight's 2020, right?
Right.
So we're living in completely different worlds between pre-2016 and post-2016. All of this insanity was happening in real time to me in 2015, 2016, before any of this was public. Now, how did I know weird things were going on, right? Because I've never met a Russian. I've never hung out with American adversaries, American enemies, but I knew a lot of these allies. But the allies, like the Brits, the Australians, the Israelis in 2015 and 2016, the Italians, they were all extremely aggressive towards Trump, the campaign, why I was on this campaign, his ideas, how they were nationalistic, populist in nature, how he wanted to get the United States out of all of these trade agreements that Obama was trying to push down the American people's throats, how NATO was trying to suck us into war with Russia back then. This was all happening in real time. So I was sitting back, having meetings at restaurants, at pubs, in private members clubs, cigar lounges, hearing this type of crazy talk from these people. And I said, there's only two options here. Either these people really hate Trump and they just have it out for him, or they're going to go after me to get to Trump. And
You
that's
knew that.
exactly,
You knew that.
I knew it because I'm a very intuitive person. Even though, like I said, this was all happening in real time in 2015, 2016. God gives you an intuition for a reason. Always use it. If there's
100%.
something off about a meeting, use that intuition, no matter if you think it's all good. So I would be sitting in, some of these restaurants with people that would present themselves as, a Cambridge professor, an Australian diplomat, let's say an Italian politician. And all of a sudden they'd be pulling their phones out, taking pictures of me, sleight of hand, recording, having their assistant do the same type of thing. And I would be sitting back there thinking, what the hell is going on here? And it was at that moment that I started to tell the campaign that there's something off. And that's when I think people in the campaign started to get worried about what was happening. And that's when the FBI took it to the next level. That's when they brought in the honeypots. There's this famous story about Comey infiltrating the campaign with honeypots. Then you have the guy 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝗃. Then you have the other domestic surveillance people going on. The FBI caught on to what we knew. They tried to silence us, and they tried to initiate a silent coup against Trump. That's really what happened. That's why they went after me so quickly with the arrest in 2017. That's why they fired Flynn so quickly a month into his job in 2017. That's why they indicted Manafort. They indicted Flynn. They made me plead guilty to a crime I never committed. It was to silence us, to create this atmosphere of paranoia, hysteria, where we couldn't talk. But fortunately, the president was smart enough. He already had information that I had been telegraphing in the past. And that's what I think allowed him to survive this.
So how many people were actually targeted in this? You couldn't have been the only one. I mean, you passed the test. How many people did not pass the test? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, see, this whole thing about Carter Page, look, I think Carter is a nice guy. I don't know if he's completely innocent in this whole situation. I hope he is, but, and I'll tell you why. Uh, I would talk to him and tell him, hey, what do you think about this whole thing with Russia? Is that a good idea? Because, like I said, I don't have any Russian connections. Page was supposedly the Russian connection guy, right? That's how they made it seem. And he would start saying, like, be very careful what you're talking about regarding Russia. Don't talk about Trump meeting Putin. Like, he would almost be threatening me, right? And he was the only one that apparently was surveilled. They targeted him. He had a 𝗫𝗍 warrant on him, apparently, but he was never indicted. He was never charged with anything, even with fake crimes, right? I mean, they charged me with a fake crime. They completely invented the crime against me. They invented the crime against Flynn. Why didn't they do it to Page? So that's just a theory I have. And he worked for the CIA in the past. So when you have that type of profile, I always have questions about why Page was never targeted, why he's gone underground now, and why he never really had a story after the fact. So he was targeted, Flynn was targeted, Manafort was targeted, I was targeted, and the people that all had one thing in common that were targeted, you know what they were? They had connections abroad. It allowed, that's what made us the targets and the low-hanging fruit that they could say, hey, Manafort has connections in Ukraine. Let me just give an example of what they did to Manafort. So we're going to go and activate Ukrainian intelligence that's on the payroll of the CIA or the FBI who wants Clinton to win. And we're going to go make a fake story about Manafort accepting bribes. That's what they did. That's what the whole fake black ledger was, that he was accepting cash payments. They did the same thing with me because I was in the UK, I was in Italy, I went to Israel. Oh, we got this guy Papadopoulos going around these capitals. Activate our people there, go dirty him up. That's what they did to Flynn. He was a former DNI. Obviously, he had numerous connections around the world. They set him up. Those were the folks that they went after. But Page had the same thing, but they never went after him. And, that's something that I think we still don't really understand why not.
What do you think you're going to learn waiting on these new intelligence drops? Are you waiting to learn anything new? What are you expecting?
Yeah,
Expecting,
see,
and what do you think you're going to learn from this?
yeah, well, here's the first thing I want to say about that is why did it take 10 years to get this stuff out? Trump was president between 2017 and 2021. He had a DNI back then. He had people like Ratcliffe, Grinnell. They talk about Rick Grinnell being this patriot. He's a nice guy. I know him. But why didn't he declassify this when he was acting DNI? Cash Patel, he's a current FBI director. He was in a position of power back then as chief of staff to the Department of Defense, and he was very close to the CIA. This stuff wasn't declassified back then. So that's still a question I have. I mean, if this stuff was out during Trump's first term, Trump would have likely won the 2020 election. I wouldn't have been sent to prison. I wouldn't have had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Flynn, the same. Manafort wouldn't have been sitting in prison. Roger Stone wouldn't have been sentenced to prison. Trump obviously wouldn't have gone through what he did, but they covered it up. So I think those people that willfully suppressed it weren't just Democrats. They were part of Trump's own administration, and Pompeo the same. So if those people were part of any conspiracy to withhold these facts, they should be held accountable too. So that's the first thing I just want to make very clear to your audience. The second thing I think we're going to find out moving forward is that Obama made the calls in 2015. The moment Trump went down those escalators, the moment the 2016 presidential campaign season went into full effect, when people like Ben Carson, Cruz, Rubio, remember all the all-stars,
Yep.
the Jeb Bushes, all these guys, Obama saw this and he said, wait a minute, there's some heavy hitters here in theory, right? Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, Bush name, millions of dollars behind him, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, senator, Rand Paul, another senator. There were a lot of heavyweights, Chris Christie. So what did Obama do? He picked up the phone in 2015. You said, look at all of these guys. What can you find on every single one of these people to dirty them up, spy on them, and if they have a chance in hell of actually beating Clinton, to cripple their administration from day one? I think we're going to find out that it wasn't just Trump's administration or campaign that was targeted. I think basically every single legitimate 2015, 2016 Republican was targeted by the Obama FBI, the Obama CIA, and some of these global actors. And I think that's going to be the major next shoe that's going to drop, and why you see DNI Gabbard and Trump so confident that they got him in a criminal conspiracy. And I'm just going to land on this. I said even on Twitter, on my X account, if you're just declassifying this weird meeting that Obama had in December, it's not going to go far enough to bring in a government conspiracy. If you declassify the stuff that I'm talking about here, that's how you bring Obama and Clapper and Brennan and Comey and potentially Clinton into a government conspiracy. If they don't want to go all the way, and I love Trump, I love the administration, I've been on MAGA since day one. They don't want to go all the way. Obama's not getting indicted. Obama's not getting arrested. And I'll bet you everything about my reputation, I'm correct on that.
Okay, I'll make a gentleman's bet with you. I think he's going to, because I see this as strategy. And how do you dismantle a bomb? You have to do it with surgical precision.
No, no, wait. You're saying, I'm saying he will be. I said Obama will be indicted if everything's declassified. If only this stuff is declassified, I don't think he's going to be indicted. That's what I said. So just to be clear, I think Obama will be indicted because I think he was involved leading a government conspiracy, but everything needs to be out because if it's not all
Okay.
declassified, a grand jury can't hear it. So just want to be clear about that.
No, no, and that makes sense. And I'm still a lot of people put me in the category of the conspiracy guy, but I'm going to say I'm watching strategy. I'm watching an operation, and I'm going to stress that word, an operation, dismantling the deep state. And it doesn't take a day, it doesn't take a week, it doesn't take a month, it doesn't take a year. It takes maybe a decade. I think this is going to last another decade of this dismantling, this surgical precision, what we're seeing. I think Trump's going all in now. He's got his ducks in a row. He's got his chess pieces in place. The big beautiful bill afforded him the proper logistics and infrastructure for a domestic military, I guess you could call it, to not just deport illegal immigrants, but quell and neutralize civil unrest when that occurs. Because I believe when this man, the liberal darling Obama, gets arrested, woo-wee, we're going to see some civil unrest. We're going to see some things in this country you've never seen before. It's going to be a shock and awe. And I think a lot of people are going to be melting, no pun intended, snowflakes. But I think it's going to be, everyone's going to remember where they're at when this happens, is what I see. I'd like to take you back to Nino'sCorner.tv and talk about this further about let's call it the potential arrest of Obama. What ramifications you see happening from this? Where do you see when this happens? Where do you see the direction of the country going and things of that nature? Are you good with going back to the .tv and discussing this further?
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, George, folks. Give him a hand. Give him a thumbs up. This was an amazing interview. For FluffTube, we're going back to Nino'sCorner.tv. George, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Anytime.